Well, hello. So it is April now. We are officially a quarter of a way through the year, and I feel like I am going nowhere with my life, so that's good. So I just thought that I would do a sort of reading wrap up for all of the books that I have read for the past 3 months. And I will have to admit, it's only a few. It's like 8, which is like a puny number in comparison to most booktubers out there. But yeah, I am a very slow reader, and on top of that, I have a lot to do in terms of school. But yeah, as I try to talk about these books, I'll try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible for those who plan on reading these books in the future. I read all of these books because BookTube and BookTok told me to, along with like the plethora of other books that I have on my TBR right now. So yeah, without further ado, this is my quarter of the year reading wrap up. The first book that I read for this year was We Were Liars by Lockhart. I bought this book because a lot of people on BookTok were hyping this book up for the plot twist at the end. Basically, it surrounds the Sinclairs, specifically Caddy or Katie.
It's Katie, C-A-D-Y. Yeah, I'm gonna call you Caddy.
Anyway, it surrounds the Sinclairs, and they're basically just very rich and very white. And the main character has 3 other friends, and once in a year, they go to their private island to spend the summer there. And we follow the main character as she struggles to remember what went on in one summer because she suffered a head injury, which caused her to lose some memories. So that's basically the premise. And a lot of people, once again, were hyping this up because of the plot twist. But also a lot of people didn't like the way it was written. For some people, they saw it as a little childish. But to be honest, I understand why it was written that way. Well, she was suffering from a head injury, so the lines were sort of broken up. I don't know if you can see, but yeah, it's sort of a lot of line breaks, and that didn't bother me at all. I sort of understood why it was like that, so it was easy to read. I finished it in 2 days, but I did find the main character a little pretentious. Actually, everyone in this book is a little pretentious because, once again, they're rich. In line with that, I didn't really like any of the characters here. They were all very boring. No one really developed. No one really changed at the end. I wasn't really attached to any of them. So yeah. Was I surprised by the plot twist? Listen, I was so disappointed with myself because I sort of spoiled myself with the plot twist. By the middle of this book, I was sort of piecing things together, but I was hoping that it wasn't what I was thinking it would be, but turns out it was, and I sort of ruined the experience for myself. But it was a good plot twist nonetheless. Was I surprised by it? No. But the ending was really sad. It didn't make me cry, but the writing sort of really got to me for some reason. So yeah, gold star for that. Overall, it was a page turner. I was really interested in what the main character would remember each chapter. So yeah, but overall, I would just give it a 3 stars because a lot of people were hyping this up on TikTok, and I was just underwhelmed by it basically. So yeah. The next book that I read was House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I do not need to talk about this book anymore. If you want to watch my in-depth book review about it, you can check it out here or there, wherever. And yeah, all in all, 5 stars. So good. The characters were so well written. It was so easy to get attached to all of them. A lot of people do say that it is a bit idealistic, but given the prose, I could understand why it was idealistic. So I don't really fault the book for that. It's such an easy read. No filler chapters whatsoever. Everything is so well paced. Like I said in my video about this book, I cried in a few chapters because it's just so well written. I cannot tell you guys how much I love this book. So yeah, easiest 5 stars ever. And I've been wanting to read this book for so long as well, and I'm glad I got to read it because everyone was loving this book, and now I know why. So yeah, overall would definitely recommend go read it, please, I beg of you. The next book that I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. Listen, I was so nervous going into this book because, first of all, it is a big boy. Like, do you see it, how big it is? And second, a lot of people either love this book or hate this book on TikTok, and I was really interested to see where I fell in that spectrum. This basically follows the life of Addie LaRue as she makes a deal with a devil or a spirit or a god or an entity, whatever, which causes her to be cursed. And her curse is just, she can't say her name, she can't write her name anywhere on any surface, and people forget her as soon as she leaves their sight. I love her writing so much. I get transported to the world she creates, every time I opened this book. So it was so good. I loved her writing so much. A lot of people do say that it's sort of repetitive at times and it's very slow, especially in the start, and I totally agree. But I also see why it was done like that. For me, it's sort of aimed to depict Addie's life and how she is and how repetitive it could be. It was a little slow in the beginning, but it does pick up near the end, and I did not expect a plot twist in that whatsoever. I was pleasantly surprised by that, and I also didn't expect the relationship that unfolded near the end. I won't say who it was with, but looking back, I do realize that it was always just there. Like, the tension was always there. I just was too blind to notice it at first, I guess. So yeah, pleasantly surprised by that as well. And yeah, but overall, I would give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely recommend it if you want like a slow burn book. The next book that I read was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And listen, I bought this book, but first of all, look at the cover. This has got to be one of the most beautiful covers of a book that I've ever seen. Ever. I bought this book because I was so interested in the concept. Basically, in a cafe somewhere, you can sit in a chair and it can take you back in time, but there are like a lot of rules that you have to follow, and you have to get back to your time before your coffee gets cold. This is like peak magical realism, and the concept is so interesting for me. That's why I had to pick it up, and my favorite booktuber also gave it 5 stars. But when I read it, I was a little underwhelmed. It was an easy read. It was easier for me to understand, but I don't know why I don't like this book as much as I expected it to. I wasn't really attached to any of the characters. Yeah, I just sort of felt like everything was spoon-fed to me. Like, the book outrightly would say what the character was thinking, what the character was feeling, and a lot of people like that, but I'm not for that. So yeah, the stories were emotional though, but I did find a few of the stories a little bit conservative and a little bit problematic. I won't really go like in depth on all of them just because I don't want to spoil anyone who wants to read this book. But yeah, I was so sad that I didn't love this book and I wasn't obsessed with it as I expected. But yeah, 3 stars though. Like, the concept itself is a good enough reason to read it, and I'd encourage you to pick it up too. The next book that I read was The Unhoneymooners by Christina and I love this book. It's an enemies to lovers. The story revolves around Olive and Ethan, who are forced to go on this honeymoon because bride and groom, or their brother and sister, have food poisoning and they can't stand each other basically. I read this when I was also on vacation, so it was really immersive for me. It was a great book to read on the beach. I really have nothing bad to say about this book. A lot of people do not vibe with the subplot at the end, but I wasn't really bothered by it. I love the drama. I love the angst. Yeah, I really loved how their relationship unfolded. It was very wholesome. The enemies to lovers isn't that sort of toxic dynamic wherein like they were verbally abusing each other. No, it was nothing like that. I love the banter. It was very lighthearted. So yeah, but I would only give it 4 stars just because, like I said, I have nothing bad to say about this book, but I have nothing overly like positive to say about it either. Like, it wasn't enough to make me like fall in love with the book, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, so 4 stars. The next book that I read was Verity by Colleen Hoover, and what? Like, I bought this book. I was very nervous to buy this book because this was the first Coho book that I would have read. It surrounds a writer who's struggling, and she gets hired to finish writing a book series of an author who is not capable of writing it anymore because she was in an accident, and that was Verity. And as she was writing this book, she saw Verity's manuscript of an autobiography, and it sort of has like really dark secrets regarding her accident, her kids, her husband, and all of that. And I'm just gagged. I'm gagged by this book, honestly. It's a 5-star for me. I sped through this book. If I didn't have classes when I was reading this, I would probably just finish it in a day. It was well paced, it was very immersive, and I was constantly doubting myself as I was reading this book. Like, I didn't know what to believe anymore. Like, I don't know what's right, what's wrong, what's up and down. Like, it was a stressful experience, but I enjoyed it. And it also tackled motherhood in a way that I haven't read before, and it's a good point for reflection, honestly. And even though it wasn't the main theme of the book, it got me hooked. I often read this at night, and it got me looking over my shoulder because I was just so scared of everything in this book, honestly. Like, I was not comfortable in my own home because of reading this book. But yeah, 5 out of 5 stars for me. It was an easy book. If her writing is always like this, she really is a beginner-friendly author, so yeah. The next book that I read was The 7 Husbands of Eveyln Hugo by Jenkins Reid. Listen, people love this book, and now I know why. People worship this book, and now I know why. The story revolves around Monique Grant, who is an unknown journalist, as she covers the life of Eveyln Hugo, a retired Hollywood actress who has married 7 husbands. And the book just tackles every single one, along with other people whom she loves, she hated, she betrayed, and she hurt. This book is so captivating and is so raw. Eveyln is a powerhouse, but she's also so human at the same time. The characters were not easy to love. Even Eveyln herself is flawed, and that just made the story so much more interesting. Everyone is sort of in that gray area of morality, which is perfect because it's Hollywood. Bisexual representation, that's it, that's the tweet. Like, it was so well represented, so delicately tackled. I love how the book tackled queer struggles all throughout the time periods, especially bisexuality, because even now bisexuals still get invalidated, even from the LGBTQ community as well. So I love how the book tackled that. It had a great depiction of domestic abuse, and it handled Eveyln's sexuality very well as well. She is a very powerful woman, and I always enjoy female characters who aren't afraid to get what they want. Like, no drama, no BS, just power. And Eveyln's talks with Monique were also very impactful. Like, she taught Monique a lot of life advice regarding sexuality and being her true self. So yeah, so good. 5 out of 5 stars for me. Would recommend you read it because it is so good and so empowering to read, honestly, especially if you're a woman. So yeah. And the last book that I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry, and this revolves around January Andrews and Augustus Everett, who are polar opposite writers, and they both agree to write the genre that the other writes, just so they could understand the struggles that are present in both genres. I picked it up because of the plot, but I stayed because of the characters. I actually just finished People We Meet on Vacation yesterday, and I can see how Emily Henry is great at writing characters. I think this is the book that had me attached to the 2 main characters the most. Each had their own backstories that were so compelling and so relatable at the same time. This was a rivals to lovers, and it depicted it so well because no one was mean, no one was a bully, and it's just like pure witty banter, and I live for it. It tackles a lot of trauma, but it also handles it very well without overshadowing it with romance, if that makes sense. And I really love how it tackled both January and Gus's trauma. It is a story about communication, and I live for that. These 2 characters communicate more than I communicate with myself. This was a good semi-light read. It does have a little bit of trauma and even talks about a cult, but again, like, nothing was really too heavy for me to read. So yeah, this was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. So there you have it. That was my January, February, and March reading wrap up. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm sorry if it's only like 8, but I am working on reading faster and getting through more books in a shorter amount of time. But yeah, hopefully some of these piqued your interest and has influenced you to buy and read them as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you do end up buying and reading some of the books I mentioned today, please don't hesitate to tell me your thoughts in the comments below because I would love to hear them. And while you're at it, please click that subscribe button for more videos. I do try to upload weekly, but no guarantee that I will. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye!